Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Packed house here today, and I have a very special guest with us, the Vice President of the United States. He'll deliver some remarks and take some questions. First, I just want to share remarks of my own. Democrats in Congress have officially shut down the United States government. House Republicans passed a nonpartisan, clean piece of legislation to extend current government funding until November 21st. But nearly every single Democrat senator voted against this bill. To be clear, this was the exact same bill that Democrats approved 6 short months ago in March, just adjusted for inflation. This is the same kind of clean funding bill that Democrats passed 13 separate times when they held the majority during Joe Biden's administration. So the American people woke up this morning and asked the obvious question: why is the government shut down right now? The answer is pure partisan politics being played by the Democrat Party. The Democrats shut down the government because President Trump and the Republicans will not force American taxpayers to pay for free health care for illegal aliens. America is $37 trillion in debt. We cannot afford to provide taxpayer-funded free health care to illegals who broke the law to enter our country. To put this all into perspective, the Democrats refused to keep the government open over health care to illegal aliens and now have jeopardized critical health care programs for American citizens instead. The Women, Infants, and Children program, community health center funding, Medicare treatment options, and other health programs are now all at risk because of the Democrats rejecting the clean CR. The most vulnerable in our country are being punished because the Democrats want to prioritize illegals over American citizens. And if Democrats actually cared about health care, they would applaud the actions taken by President Trump just yesterday in the Oval Office. He took a bold and massively popular action to improve our healthcare system. He announced the first agreement with a major pharmaceutical company, Pfizer, to lower drug costs for Americans. This is a historical achievement long sought by past Democrat presidents that only President Trump was able to get done. Also yesterday, while the Democrats were whining about health care for illegal aliens, President Trump signed a powerful executive order to supercharge American AI innovation and unlock cures for pediatric cancer patients in the United States. While President Trump took action to lower drug prices and improve the lives and the care of American children with cancer, again, Democrats are fighting to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. The Trump administration is fully committed to lowering health care costs and advancing policies that will save American lives. But right now, we need to keep the government open and funded. And individuals and organizations across the political spectrum, across the country, agree with the Trump administration and Republicans. The labor union leader, the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, sent a very blunt message to Democrats over their destructive antics. He said American workers are not bargaining chips. Senators need to stop screwing around and pass the House-passed clean short-term funding bill. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the world's largest business organization, called to immediately pass the Republican clean CR, saying, quote, shutdowns are harmful to the economy, the American people, and our national security. And even Democrat Senators Cortez Masto and Fetterman acknowledged that their party is betraying the American people with this costly and chaotic Democrat shutdown. Enough is enough. Democrats need to stop sabotaging our country and holding the American people hostage in the country. Democrats need to do their jobs. The American people want the government reopened, and this is proven in a New York Times poll showing that 2 in 3 Americans say the government should not be shut down by the Democrats, even if their absurd demands are not met. The president and Republicans are working very hard to reopen the federal government. The vice president here has been crucial in this effort. We encourage all Americans across the country, call your Democrat senators and encourage them to reopen the government. That's what President Trump and the vice president want to do. And with that, I will turn it over to our great Vice President JD Vance.
Great. Well, thank you, Caroline, and good afternoon to everybody, and good afternoon to everybody who's watching at home. It's a tough act to follow, but let me just say a few things, and then I'll take a few questions. Number one, Democrats say that they care a lot about lowering health care costs, and yet when the president took historic action to work with the drug companies to lower prescription drug prices, the Democrats did nothing to help us. In fact, we would have loved to have the Democrats helping us, but they didn't. They talk about doing something. They don't actually do the hard work of making it happen. What they have done instead is to shut down the government because we won't give billions of dollars to health care funding for illegal aliens. That is what has actually happened. To the American people who are watching, the reason your government is shut down at this very minute is because, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans and even a few moderate Democrats supported opening the government, the Chuck Schumer AOC wing of the Democratic Party shut down the government because they said to us, we will open the government, but only if you give billions of dollars of funding for health care for illegal aliens. That's a ridiculous proposition. Let me say two other quick things, and then again, I'll take some questions. Number one, we all understand that Democrats and Republicans have policy disagreements. The Democrats want to do things. Look, when Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were in here a couple of days ago, they made some suggestions that the president was more than happy to say, yes, let's sit down and talk about how we can solve the health care crisis that we inherited from the Biden administration. But it's one thing to say that we should solve the health care crisis for Americans. It's another thing to say that we're going to shut down the government unless we give the Democrats every single thing that they want, which, as Caroline says, includes giving billions of dollars of taxpayer funding for health care for illegal migrants. That's ridiculous. You don't have policy disagreements that serve as the basis for a government shutdown. Let's have the conversation about how to fix American health care, about how to make health care more accessible. As the president showed, he's more than willing to act on behalf of the American people for this very reason. What you don't do is say, unless you do exactly what we want to do as congressional Democrats, we're taking hostage. And the hostage, it turns out, is critical, essential services that the American people need. Caroline talked about some of it. Let me talk about some more. Our troops are not getting paid starting today because of the Chuck Schumer wing of the Democratic Party. We have people who require food assistance, low-income Americans who require food assistance, who will not get it unless we reopen the government, thanks to Chuck Schumer and his wing of the Democratic Party. We have flood insurance as we start hurricane season in the southeastern part of our country. That flood insurance is going to disappear because of Chuck Schumer and the far left of the Democratic Party. We need to reopen the government. Let's fix America's problems. Let's work together to solve them. But let's reopen the government before we have our negotiation about health care policy. That's what the American people demand, and that's certainly what the President of the United States wants. Let me make one final point. I think a lot of Americans are asking themselves, why did this happen? Why did the Democrats shut down the government despite, as Caroline said, voting on the exact same piece of legislation 6 months ago? And there are a lot of different spins that we can put on it, a lot of different answers that we could give, all of them true. One answer I already gave is that they want to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. That is true. They gave us legislative text that would have undone us cutting off health care benefits for illegal aliens. That's one of the things that they asked for. But the reality here, and let's be honest about the politics, is that Chuck Schumer is terrified she's going to get a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The reason why the American people's government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far-left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge. So I'd invite Chuck Schumer to join the moderate Democrats and 52 Senate Republicans, do the right thing, open up the people's government, and then let's fix health care policy for the American people. Questions?
Mr. Vice President.
That's a lot. Matt Boyle.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, there's two key Democrat lies I would like to get your take on and see if you can address. The first is that you're seeing a number of top Democrat leaders, from Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer to Hakeem Jeffries, claim that it is a Republican shutdown caused by Trump. The second is that they're out there now claiming that they don't want to give health care to illegal aliens. Can you address both of those lies from the Democrat Party?
Yeah, so on the point that it's a Republican shutdown, look, it's obviously a Democratic shutdown. Just look at the vote totals in the House, look at the vote totals in the Senate, and look at the President of the United States' own action and conduct throughout this crisis. Nearly every single House Republican voted to open the government, Matt. Nearly every single Senate Republican voted to open the government last night, and even to their credit, a few moderate Democrats voted to open the government. That's not a Republican shutdown when nearly every single Senate Democrat votes to shut it down and every Republican voted to open it up. It's just obviously not true. Now, you can disagree about a number of things, but you can't disagree about the obvious fact that Republicans voted to open the government. The president stands ready to sign that opening of the government. We just need a few more Democrats to join us in that effort to open the government. Your final question about illegal alien benefits. Look, the text is very clear, and I even saw, I think it was George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Mike Johnson, did a fact check that was totally rooted in baseless claims. It was basically Democrat propaganda. If you look at the legislative text that they gave us, they tried to turn on two separate provisions that would give health care benefits to illegal aliens. Number one, if you're an American citizen, you've been to a hospital in the last few years, you probably noticed that wait times are especially large, and very often somebody who's there in the emergency room waiting is an illegal alien, very often a person who can't even speak English. Why do those people get health care benefits at hospitals paid for by American citizens? The answer is a decision made by the Biden administration that the Trump administration, working with congressional Republicans, undid. We turned off that money spigot to health care funding for illegal aliens. The Democrats, in their legislative text, want to turn it back on. That's one thing. The second thing, Matt, is we all know that there are various ways in which the Biden administration waved away illegal immigration status. They gave parolees, they gave asylum claims to people who weren't really claiming asylum. And when they waved the magic wand of amnesty, giving millions of people legal status, even though they were in the country illegally, they also gave those people access to health care benefits. So what the Democrats are engaging in is a sleight of hand. They're saying, no, no, no. Those weren't illegal aliens who were getting health care benefits, even though everybody, knows they were in the country illegally. It's a lie told by the Democrats that they're not trying to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. It's a lie that is obviously untrue if you just look at the text that they gave us, and all you have to do is understand that this is about who benefits. We think the American people's government ought to benefit American citizens. The Democrats are willing to shut it down to benefit illegal aliens. The contrast couldn't be more clear. Peter.
Thank you, Vice President Vance. The big holdup is, of course, that you guys say illegal immigrants are getting taxpayer-funded health care. Democrats say you're lying. That makes it feel like it could be a really long shutdown. Is this going to be a long shutdown?
You know, I don't know. I can't predict what congressional Democrats are going to do, Peter, but I actually don't think it's going to be that long of a shutdown. This is a pure guess from the Vice President of the United States because I think you already saw some evidence that moderate Democrats are cracking a little bit. They understand the fundamental illogic of this. Look, for years, every single one of us, we can remember Barack Obama on the White House lawn. We can remember Chuck Schumer. We can remember, Nancy Pelosi for years. In Chuck Schumer's case, for literally decades, we've heard them say, you don't shut the government down over a policy disagreement. Okay, Republicans think this thing about health care, that thing about health care. Democrats think this thing about immigration. Republicans disagree. Whatever those disagreements are, you don't shut down the government over it. For the first time since the Democrats have been in politics, they're now saying that unless we get every policy item that we demand, we're going to shut down the people's government. They're trying to take a hostage, and we're not going to let them.
And the administration announced today that $18 billion bound for New York transportation projects is going to be frozen so it can't go to DEI programs there. But the timing of this, does announcing that today mean that you guys are going to squeeze Chuck Schumer's home state until he blinks?
Look, I haven't talked to Russ about this morning, but look, I'm sure that Russ is heartbroken about the fact that he's unable to give certain things to certain constituencies. We want to do everything that we can to help the American people, but when the Democrats shut down the government, we have to actually do a little triage to make sure the most critical and most essential services are provided. The government does a lot of things. Of course, Republicans think that the federal government probably does too much, but there are a lot of critical things the federal government does that absolutely all of us would agree need to do. Our troops need to get paid. Our air traffic controllers need to make sure that people are flying safely and on time. We need low-income people to be able to access the food services that are provided by the federal government. There are critical things that need to be saved. We're going to do everything that we can over the coming weeks, if the shutdown lasts that long, to ensure that people get the essential services that they need, despite the fact that Chuck Schumer has shut down the federal government. It's not going to be perfect because we are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you for being here. Yesterday, President Trump said, as a result of the shutdown, we'll be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and the Democrats, they are going to be Democrats. Has the administration asked agencies to target federal workers who they believe to be Democrats in these reductions of forces?
We're not targeting federal agencies based on politics. We're targeting the people's government so that as much as possible of the essential services can continue to function. That is the question the president has asked the entire government, is fundamentally, okay, we're in a shutdown. That causes some problems. The troops aren't getting paid. There's nothing that we can do about that while the government is shut down. But there are essential services that we want to make sure as much as possible they still continue to function. That is the principle that's driving us forward during this shutdown. It's going to continue to be the principle that drives us forward. But let's be honest. If this thing drags on for another few days or, God forbid, another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to save money in some places so the essential services don't get turned off in other places. That is the reality of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have foisted upon the administration.
So what did
Phil.
he mean by they're going to be Democrats? He said they're going to be
President.
Democrats.
You've laid out a lot of the pain and problems that would come with a Democratic shutdown, and yet in the Oval Office yesterday, the president said that a lot of good could come from a shutdown. So square that circle. Which is it, a Democratic-caused crisis or a Republican opportunity for reform?
Well, I think all the president is saying, Phil, is that he wants to make sure the American people's government functions as well as it can, despite the fact that we're in a shutdown. We're going to have to make things work. And that means that we're going to have to triage some certain things. That means certain people are going to have to get laid off. And we're going to try to make sure that the American people suffer as little as possible from this shutdown. That's what the president is saying, is that, yes, this is a bad thing. Obviously, the president is trying to reopen the government, but we're going to make things work as well as we possibly can, given the constraints that we have.
And then on those policy differences for the discussion and the negotiations to come later, during the Biden administration, Democrats twice voted to expand these Affordable Care Act tax credits. But those were supposed to be temporary, and they were slated to expire at the end of the year. As you sort of crack the door open to negotiation at a later date, would the party that ran on defunding Obamacare really negotiate about potentially expanding Obamacare?
Well, Phil, what we've said to the Democrats is that we're willing to have a conversation about how to ensure that Americans continue to have access to health care. And frankly, they should have access to better health care at a lower cost. We inherited a mess of a health care system from the Biden administration. It's why the president has worked so hard on the most favored nation status for prescription drugs. It's why we care so much about lowering the cost of prescriptions and why we're doing everything else. We're willing to have that conversation. But I think it's important to bracket the health care policy conversation because it's separate from the government shutdown. We think that we can open the government and then have the conversation about what best health care policy to fit the needs of the American people. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to accomplish. We've got to reopen the government first. Now, Caroline, I don't know how you do this, how you actually choose people, because I don't know 90% of the names in here. Is it just who's the best dressed? Okay, I really like your shirt. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You are President of the Senate. Can you talk about what you're doing, what the administration is doing to try to get other Senate Democrats to vote to open the government?
Yeah, we're talking to a number of our colleagues, Democratic and Republican, in the Senate. I talked to a number of them last night. The president, of course, is talking to them as well. I think there really are two categories of demands that I've seen privately from congressional Democrats. I think on the one hand, those who are negotiating in good faith are saying, look, we just want to make sure that we're able to have a conversation with the administration about some of the critical needs that we see that need to get fixed over the next few months. We recognize it's kind of absurd, and a lot of them will admit in private that it's kind of absurd to shut down the people's government over these disagreements, but just agree to negotiate with us in good faith on these issues, and of course we're having that conversation with them. Then there's another category, people who say, give us everything we want or we're going to keep the government shut down. We just write those people off because they're not negotiating in good faith. And frankly, we don't need them. We've already got 3 more Democrats last night than I thought we would get. And I think it's because they recognize the illogic of the position of taking the entire American economy hostage because they don't get their policy priorities. So 3 moderate Democrats joined 52 Republicans last night. We need 5 more in order to reopen the government, and that's really where we're going to focus, is how to get those 5 additional Democrats.
Thanks, Mr. Vice President. First, 2 questions. Are there plans to meet Democratic leaders again in the coming days, or are you planning on plucking off senators one by one?
So that's the whole question?
No, I got a second part.
Okay, go ahead and ask the second question.
So the president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer.
I saw.
Recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even, poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that. Now, to your first question, are we negotiating one-on-one? Are we negotiating in groups? Look, I will go to the U.S. Capitol right now and meet with Chuck Schumer or any Senate Democrat if it helps us reopen the government. Most of the conversations, in my experience at least, have been one-off. We're also, of course, relying on some of our Senate Republican colleagues who have good relationships across the aisle. We're going to do whatever we have to do is the answer. And I think it's tough to predict what shape this negotiation is going to take over the next few months. But I feel good about the fact that Democrats already realize privately the fundamental irrationality of their position. I hope that they're going to publicly acknowledge it and reopen the government. Right in the back, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You responded to a post on X of Chuck Schumer on the House floor back in 1996, railing against illegal immigrants receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. You said Chuck Schumer once recognized that it was disastrous to give illegal aliens rewards for breaking the law. Now he wants to shut down the government unless we reward illegal aliens for breaking the law. Why has Chuck Schumer changed his stance?
That's a good question. Actually, it's a very tough question. Asking me to get in the head of Chuck Schumer is not a place I particularly want to be, but my basic read on it is that the entire Democratic Party, the political leadership, not every Democrat nationwide, but the political leadership of their party has got it into their heads that the only way to be compassionate is to be compassionate to illegal aliens rather than American citizens. If you go back to what Bill Clinton was saying, even Barack Obama in some cases, what he was saying about illegal immigration 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would put them on the MAGA right based purely on their rhetoric around illegal immigration. So I don't know why they've gone so far to the left. I think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for them politically. But our principle, all I can do is speak for the president that I serve and the country, the administration that I serve right now. We believe that the American people's government exists for the American people. That means the people who have the legal right to be here, and that's why we're fighting to reopen the government. And unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting to shut it down for the benefit of illegal aliens. And I'll take a couple more, and then I'll let Caroline. I'll go back to my day job so Caroline can go back to hers. All right. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just going back to the sombrero. You said that the president is joking, but Hakeem Jeffries says that these memes were racist. What's your response to that? And just if I may briefly go off topic, Secretary Hegseth yesterday made an edict about no more beardos in the military. Just wondered what.
Sorry, what did he say?
No more beardos.
Beards.
Oh, sorry, it's my accent. Just wondered your response to that.
I didn't see that particular comment. I thought Pete gave a hell of a speech, and a speech that really is just oriented around returning the American military to the very high standards that it has had for virtually its entire history until Joe Biden came along and decided to lower standards. I think it was bad for our military, and it was bad for our troops. When I was a young United States Marine, I did not have a beard. I am now the vice president, so I get to do what I want to do. But I think Pete's trying to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had like the curly animated mustache too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President, in every previous shutdown, workers have been furloughed, not laid off. So why does the president want to fire some workers and not just furlough them? Why is this shutdown any different?
Well, first of all, we haven't made any final decisions about what we're going to do with certain workers. What we're saying is that we might have to take extraordinary steps, especially the longer this goes on. We're going to have to take extraordinary measures to ensure the people's government operates, again, not perfectly, because it's not going to operate perfectly in the midst of a shutdown, but operate as well as it possibly can. And I think that the Democrats, if they're so worried about the effect this is having on the American people, and they should be, what they should do is reopen the government, not complain about how we respond to the fact that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have shut down the government in the first place. Thank you all.
Carolina. Going to target some benefits, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. See you guys.
The federal government officially shut down today for the first time in almost 7 years. Earlier today, the Senate failed to pass bills introduced by each party to keep the government open. Among some notable government agencies, the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, that's expected to furlough 89% of its employees. The Department of Education, 87%, the Labor Department, 76%, and the Department of Health and Human Services at 41% furloughed. Both Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer pointed fingers at the other side for the shutdown.
And they have taken the American people hostage in a way that they think benefits them politically, but at the consequence and the cost of what's going to happen to the American families if this government shutdown continues.
Republicans thought that they could barrel us into a shutdown because they didn't want to protect the health care of the American people. Well, now they've seen they can't bully us.
And CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us from Capitol Hill. Caitlin, very good to see you. After these two failed votes in the Senate today, though, what comes next? Is there any kind of off-ramp in sight here?
Yeah, Nancy, that is the question that everybody up here on Capitol Hill is asking. How does this end? I can tell you that earlier today, there has been a little bit of progress in terms of talking. Remember, we saw both sides really entrenched in their positions. Republicans saying this is just a clean extension of current funding. Democrats saying that they won't support anything unless it ensures that those health care subsidies that are supposed to run out at the end of the year are renewed. We saw earlier today on the Senate floor a group of bipartisan lawmakers talking, and we've heard from some of them that they are talking about potential shorter proposals to get the government back up and running, and also discussions about that health care component. But it is such early days right now in terms of those discussions, and both sides are really dug in on their positions. And we just heard from the vice president at the White House saying that the government has to reopen in order for any negotiations to move forward. So the big question is, whether Democrats say, okay, we'll take some kind of discussion, but they have been asking for actual policy in this bill. And Republicans, as you saw from that press conference, are very adamant that they pass this short-term resolution to get the government open again.
And as they stand so far apart here, why could this shutdown potentially be more risky or riskier for the Democrats and the Republicans here?
Well, you may be looking at government and say, don't Republicans control the House and the Senate? That's true, they do. But in the Senate, they do need support from Democrats to pass anything like this. They need 60 votes. Republicans only have 53. So they do need several Democrats to come on board. And that's why Democrats have used this opportunity as a point of leverage to ask for policies that they want. And they're also getting a really strong pushback from their base, the base of the Democratic Party, pushing lawmakers up here to push the president more, to hold the administration accountable more, to stand up and fight against the administration in their view. So that's the pressure that leaders on the Democratic side are facing. You may remember back in March, we were in a similar scenario and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer decided to go ahead and let members support the bill because he was worried about the impact of a shutdown. It turned out he got a lot of pushback and backlash from the base of his party, and so this is a different stance. The question is whether someone blinks. This is really a staring contest at this point. We are now in a government shutdown, and I can tell you, Nancy, I spoke to a federal worker today who's really feeling the impact. Federal workers will get paid eventually. They'll get paid back. But right now, they won't get a paycheck. That doesn't help for paying the bills that are due.
Yeah, absolutely. The daycare, the utility, what have you, bills. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you for your context and reporting. And Vice President Vance put the responsibility solely on Democrats for allowing the situation to play out the way it is. Here's some of what he had to say during today's press briefing.
To the American people who are watching, the reason your government is shut down at this very minute is because, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans and even a few moderate Democrats supported opening the government, the Chuck Schumer AOC wing of the Democratic Party shut down the government because they said to us, we will open the government, but only if you give billions of dollars of funding for health care for illegal aliens. That's a ridiculous proposition.
And for more on this, we have CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, thanks for being here with us. The president has discussed the possibility of mass layoffs during this shutdown, teasing that they will be Democrats. This is in addition to a buyout for some 150,000 government workers that goes into effect today. What do we know about his plan to take advantage possibly of this shutdown and what that could look like?
Well, Nancy, it's good to be with you. Our Wei Zhejiang actually asked the vice president this question. Are they targeting Democrats as part of this reduction in force that they're able to do because the government is shut down? Vice President Vance said they're not targeting federal agencies based on politics. He said they are targeting people's government so that as much as possible, the essential services can continue to function, and saying that they're going to target those non-essential services, those services that they believe are not helping the productivity of the government, are what they're going to be looking at. But the president yesterday said that teasing that Democrats would be a part of this as well. They were also asked about those reduction in force emails that will be going out. We heard from Russ Vought, who said that those could who said that those could happen within the next 2 days if this shutdown continues. The vice president, who actually has become kind of the messenger from the White House on this shutdown, given his history in the Senate and his time there, has really been outspoken about this shutdown, said that he hopes this isn't a long one, but they do need Democrats to come to the table to get this continuing resolution passed. But as of right now, and as you just heard from Caitlin Huey-Burns, doesn't seem like there's a lot of movement on this at this moment. So we're expecting some of that messaging out of the White House to continue in the coming days, especially as this just looms over the entire White House and Washington, D.C.
Yeah, with plenty of ripple effects to Olivia Rinaldi. Thank you. And the government shutdown is causing potentially critical economic data to be delayed, including this week's jobs report. Earlier, CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady explained to my colleague Vlad Duthier that this could have serious ripple effects down the road.
So this is really important. We were going to get a jobs report on Friday, a CPI inflation report next week. That comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They are out there gathering economic data. When the government is shut down, they can't do that. And so they have already stated in a shutdown they aren't going to release those numbers. It's going to be delayed. Why is that important? The Federal Reserve is going to meet at the end of October, and they're going to utilize this data to determine if they're going to cut interest rates. The market is banking on a quarter-point cut at least by the end of the month. But I've been talking to analysts who said, hey, the Fed may just sort of go back to that wait-and-see approach because they don't have the data.
And O'Grady says officials may have to start relying on other potentially private data sets like ADP payroll numbers to make decisions in the near future.